Imagine, if you will, a scenario where you get a call from a loved one who has been presumed dead for years, only to have them warn you not only to have them warn you to not pursue or look for them for your own safety. You take the risk anyway, make the trip to some location hidden on the outskirts of the country, even if it means throwing everything else away, just because you have to know. You need to know. And sometimes knowing means you'll never return the same. Especially if she saws off your hand, Jesus Christ. Okay, we are now at number 5, and before I forget, I want to wish you all a
Happy Halloween.
As the series I pulled out my ass has finally reached its inevitable climax. I thought I'd end the series off with a more recent game, or I guess from a casual gamer's perspective, a game that was pretty recent for me in terms of horror. Resident Evil 7 is a slightly more than competent horror game, but even I can attest that it doesn't do a whole lot that is new, but more so refreshing. This is not the holy Edgar Allan Poe of video games. This is not H.P. Lovecraft, this is not Stephen King, and it's certainly not PT or Amnesia: The Dark Descent, games I feel RE7 drew very heavy inspiration from. I'd also like to add that I think RE7 could have been a truly scary and remarkable horror game for the time if it wasn't Resident Evil in name, which only serves up the occasional mythological themes of the Resident Evil franchise to appear in the game's narrative. And yet, as a horror fan, this game is a revelation of sorts. I avoided it for a while because I'd become disenchanted with games like Five Nights at Freddy's, Slender Man, and all of the Silent Hill, Dead Space, and recent Resident Evil sequels, and really anything that made the genre haywire. A brief light in the dark might have been Outlast, a game that combines the thrills with the technology of our time to create a truly hellish landscape to explore. But Resident Evil 7 not only nails its premise and presentation, it's also set an incredibly high benchmark that will probably not be met again until maybe the upcoming Resident Evil 2 remake. The game was like being in a horror movie, but as the lead character, not as the viewer who knows all the tricks. You play as Ethan Winters as he explores an old family mansion in Dulvey, Louisiana, only to find his dead wife Mia alive and well in the basement of the family estate. Although the place seems abandoned, there is something off about how it's been left. The grungy decay of the home speaks unanswered volumes, and what's worse is Mia's connection to its inhabitants. As you attempt to escape at the beginning, she goes full possessed demon on you out of the blue and butchers you without hesitation until you muster the strength to fight back. This in turn leads to the Baker family waking up from their hellish void and treating you to a nightmare of their own making.
Welcome to the family, son.
And really, I feel it best to cut it there plot-wise for those who avoided spoilers and haven't played the game yet. Now that your main goal is to get out, you find yourself getting dirty, solving occasional puzzles, retreading many parts of the property for items and clues, and watching VHS footage of Mia and a documentary crew who have also tread the secret passages awaiting Ethan. As I mentioned, Resident Evil 7 especially reminds me of PT because of the way it looks. It very much built itself upon the first-person perspective in what still looks like an almost photorealistic environment where you use all of your senses. The walls and hallways are tight, everything is lit in a damp and scorching heat with lighting that feels motivated as it reflects off of objects. The gore and the slime are over the top, and I also love the various send-ups to the multiple types of horror. It really hit me when fighting Jack Baker, who is your quintessential slasher villain, then Margaret Baker, a supernatural succubus, and then Lucas, a torture-porn jigsaw character. And Grandma, who's kinda like Grandpa except without the skin cancer. I do agree with some of the complaints about the second half from fans and critics, namely the lack of genuine scares. Whereas in the first half of the game you are a hostage with little at your disposal and no surefire way out, the second half definitely doesn't put you on edge the same way. At some point you have more ammunition, you've seen every enemy the game can possibly throw at you, and you've pieced together the whole storyline pretty quickly. Although I feel the scare factor diminishes over time, I was still that invested in the characters that I had to finish, and I get an adrenaline boost fighting through every enemy. Part of me feels that was the game's intent, to train you to gain the courage you didn't have at first when playing. But for nitpick's sake, yeah, some of the facial animation is stiff and weird, right down to the hair, which I understand is not easy to animate. Even the lips didn't always sync with the characters and it would break the immersion.
Not after what happened, after what I did. But I just want you to know that wasn't me. I don't know what happened.
Also, I'm not a fan of the choice system Ethan has to make in the middle of the story. We see this trope used in condemned criminal origins, but my question is, if it's not going to affect the outcome of the story, why even bother inserting it? Speaking of Ethan, I actually like him as a protagonist, sneaking in some dry wit here and there after seeing Hell and Back. We like being in his shoes as he knows just about as much as we do, although I hear people are hinting at him secretly having a large part in all of this, including ties to the rest of the franchise, which to me isn't as interesting. I played it with the mindset of a regular guy who gets caught up in something terrible and has to survive the night.
And that's the appeal. Survival. You go to the horror doesn't come to you.
The game rekindled the flame I once held for horror so deeply I couldn't stop thinking of concepts on how to write horror, the way to develop characters, as well as the horrors that lie within the tale. This game is a passion project, a work of love for a game series that fell off the older it got. This game defines what survival horror should be, and truly horrifying it can be.
And yep, that's about it. That's about all I got. I am going as Ernest P. Worrell for Halloween, so don't eat too much candy tonight, and don't drink too much tonight. And I mean, you can egg a couple houses if you feel like it, but I don't. Stop it!
Thought you'd just slip out before dinner was done? Don't move!